Hello and welcome to Man's Model Moments. In this video I'm going to be looking at the Ranger subclass from the expert classes in the 1D&D Unearthed Arcana playtest material. I have videos on the other subclasses, which are linked here, as well as an overall video which combines all these three together with some discussion on the expert classes and other small features in general. Now, of course, this is the second release, so the first release covers some of the basics. If you haven't seen that yet, I'll link it above for you to have a look at. Now, Rangers have had a pretty checkered history in 5th E. They're often regarded, debated as being one of the weaker classes, especially some subclasses there. This deals with the Hunter, which is the top chosen subclass of Ranger, about 58%, so again, about 4% of the overall single-classed PCs out there, so similar, very similar to the Lawbard. A whole bunch of stuff hasn't changed. The hit dice, armor, weapons, tool proficiencies, saving throws and skills are all exactly as they were in 5th edition. Now, the biggest change straight up is Rangers now get spellcasting at level 1, not level 2. The other thing is they get cantrips. So they get 2 cantrips and 2 first level spells at level 1. Any spell you can prepare must be a primal spell from any school of magic except evocation. And those refresh on a long rest where you can replace those spells with any other primal spell which isn't evocation in exactly the same way. So again, we're seeing the same thing, that anybody is allowed to take any spell that they're allowed to take each time they take a long rest. Make of that what you will. You'll either like it or you don't. That is one of the major changes in 1D&D in the way that spell preparation is being done as far as I can see so far. Now, the number of spell slots they get hasn't really changed much. Apart from the fact they get cantrips, they now get a couple of first level spells at the beginning, and then the spell progression is basically exactly the same as it was in 5th E. So they haven't added a whole bunch of spells. They've basically made it that you get 2 at first, 2 at second, 3 at third and fourth, and then it's 4-2, exactly the same progression as in 5th E. So you're not getting a lot more, you're just getting it earlier. Your spellcasting ability is still wisdom. The spellcasting focus, which was optional in 5th E, is now a requirement. You can use a druidic focus. Well, not a requirement, but it's just in the core rules that you can use a druidic focus rather than using material components. Then we get into the changes. And this really, it feels like a flavour change for the Ranger. So essentially, they've done away with a lot of the stuff dealing with the terrain, if I can take it like that. Rather now than Ranger feeling like, somebody based in nature who knows terrain and stuff, all of that is gone. I'm not going to go through all the different iterations of what's happened with Ranger, so I'm just using the straight-up Player's Handbook versions. Favoured enemy. So we all know favoured enemy. You basically get advantage on wisdom survival checks to track them, intelligence checks to recall about them. You can also learn a language of your choice spoken by your favoured enemies, if they speak one. It's one of those abilities that either comes in a lot or not at all in campaigns. A lot of campaigns aren't outside, aren't based in the wilderness, or based in a different type of terrain. So this has been one of those things that's been debated a lot, which is why favoured enemy also has an option. The description now is you are adept at focusing your ire on a single foe. You always have the Hunter's Mark spell prepared, and it doesn't count against the number of spells you can prepare. Moreover, and this is a good bit, you don't have to concentrate on the spell once you cast it. It lasts for its full duration, and you can end it as a bonus action or until you're incapacitated. So this is non-concentration Hunter's Mark. It's not for free, so you still have to cast it. You still have to use, and you've only got 2 spell slots. You've only got 3 all the way up until 5th level, but you've always got it. This is quite a big boost, I think, at lower levels, and not requiring concentration is great. So basically, unless you're incapacitated, you can go ahead and use Hunter's Mark all the time. But again, it is quite a flavour departure. Now you're kind of a focused hunter. And this isn't the hunter subclass, this is just Rangers. Next up in 5th E, you have Natural Explorer. You can just forget about all of that, because that's gone. It just doesn't exist at all. So again, what I mean about the flavour of them changing now, because this was, you had a favoured terrain, you couldn't be slowed in that terrain, all that kind of stuff. Forget it, that's all gone. What you do get instead is expertise. And again, this kind of calls back to this grouping. So experts now all get expertise. And at first level, you get expertise in 2 skill proficiencies. You can have, expertise in survival. So you could be an expert tracker or whatever, which is quite a good feeling, I think. I just don't know why they've taken away all of the kind of stuff based on... I mean, if you wanted to make Aragorn, it's kind of a little bit difficult to see that in here. So it's that sort of flavour piece is almost missing, and the focus. But mechanically, that's quite good. Next up, fighting style. A little bit of a nerf here, in that basically you get exactly the same, apart from you can only choose archery, defence, or 2-weapon fighting now. Whereas you had a bigger range in 50. Whether that will expand or change in future, I'll have to see. But it's a small nerf, it's not really much. Primeval Awareness, 3rd level. You can use your action, expend 1 ranger spell slot to focus your awareness on the region around you, and then you can tell whether types of creatures are present. Gone. Again, that flavour piece of that kind of, your familiarity with the environment and tracking, and that is all just gone. Forget all of that. If that's what turns you on about Rangers are no longer for you. Ranger Enclave, obviously choosing that at 3rd level, that is unchanged. But the martial versatility, which was an option at every level that allowed you an ASI, you could also change your fighting style, reflecting that change in how you've been fighting. That's just gone. Extra attack at 5th level, unchanged. Landstride, which started at 8th level, and now it has changed to an ability called Roving, which happens at 7th level, so it happens a little bit earlier. And again, this is a bit of a flavour change. So it's mechanically simpler now. So Roving, your speed increases by 10 feet while you're not wearing heavy armour, and you also have a climb speed and a swim speed equal to your speed, which I kind of get, but what if you were a ranger in the forest and didn't have really, big pools of water? Why would you have a swimming speed? So again, a bit of a flavour departure, but mechanically, it's good. Landstride had you moving through non-magical difficult terrain, costing no extra movement. Now, that obviously applies to a lot of different circumstances, including dungeons and things, where difficult terrain is imposed by, rocks and stuff or whatever terrain, not magical, but non-magical. So it's broadly applicable. Whereas increasing your speed by 10 feet, you've got difficult terrain. Okay, you could have moved 15 feet as a normal character. As a ranger, you could have moved 30 feet through that. And now, with extra 10 feet of movement, your speed is likely, if you're human, say, 40 feet, so you're going to be moving 20 feet, because that difficult terrain is still going to affect you. So, it's different. That's basically the take home, is this is a very different ability. Also, you could have passed through non-magical plants without being slowed them, without taking damage from them. So thorns, spines, and all that didn't affect you, whereas now, of course, it will. In addition, you have advantage on saving throws against plants that are magically created or manipulated. So you don't have any of that. So now, Entangle is as likely to affect you as any other character. So again, it kind of takes away from the flavour of what a ranger was. So this is kind of ranger reimagined. Now, what you do get at 8th level now is another set of expertise. You gain 2 more expertises and proficiencies of your choice. Now, in 5th, you had an ability at 10th level called Hide in Plain Sight, where you could spend a minute camouflaging yourself. So this is where you go full Rambo and get all this stuff, or Arnie and Predator, rubbing mud all over yourself to camouflage yourself, and gaining plus 10 to dexterity stealth checks. That's gone, but it's kind of replaced now by your 13th level ability, which we'll come to shortly. In the UA now, you also get an ability at the 11th level called Tireless, and this is really good. Primal Forces now help fuel you on your journeys, granting you the following benefits. You get temporary hit points whenever you finish a short or long rest, which are equal to 1d8 plus your proficiency bonus, and you can also decrease exhaustion. If you're exhausted when you finish a short rest, you can reduce your level of exhaustion by 1. That is massive. I mean, that's the same as a greater restoration for free. That's a really, really good ability. Exhaustion is a horrible, crippling, debilitating effect in 50. Being able to just get rid of it on a short rest, fantastic. Now, at 13th level, you get Nature's Veil, and this kind of incorporates some of the Hide in Plain Sight and the Vanish that you would get at 14th level in 5th E, where you could use a hide as a bonus action, and you can't be tracked by non-magical means unless you choose to leave a trail. 13th level, Nature's Veil. You invoke spirits of nature to magically hide yourself from view. As a bonus action, you can expend a spell slot and become invisible until the end of your next turn. So this, on the face of it, you think, fantastic, you can turn invisible. It's only until the end of your next turn. So think of something like a Firbolg that gets that ability naturally. You're getting this at 13th level, and you're not able to do any of the stuff that you could do in 5th E. So you can still be tracked by non-magical means. You can't use the hide as a bonus action. You can't camouflage yourself and get +10 to dex checks. So it seems like a very short-term... Oh, plus, of course, you have to spend a spell slot. And again, it's a different feel. So now you are a bit more of a magical nature warrior, although the connection with nature is really not there. Next up is Feral Senses. So at 5th E, you would get this at 18th level. You're now getting this at 15th level, so full 3 levels earlier. It is a little bit different. So just in terms of the wording, at 18th level, when you attack a creature you can't see, your inability to see it doesn't impose disadvantage on your attack rolls against it. You're also aware of the location of any invisible creatures within 30 feet of you, provided the creature isn't hidden from you and you aren't blinded or deafened. Now, they've simplified that into you get blind sight of 30 feet. Okay? Which I think is a fair simplification of it, but you're getting it 3 levels earlier, so that's a big boost, really, to that ability. Now, the capstone ability of the base ranger is Foe Slayer at 20th level. You can add your wisdom modifier to the attack roll or damage of basically anything you make against one of your favoured enemies, and that's once on each turn. You're now getting that ability at 18th level, so you get it earlier, but I have to say... Hunter's Mark now does a D10 instead of a D6. So an average of 5.5 instead of 3.5. So an average of 2 points more. And you're still having to use Hunter's Mark. Whereas before it was basically an ability where you could just use it. I get you getting it earlier, but it seems really weak. 20th level, again, you get an epic boon. That's common amongst all of these. This is a reflavouring of the Ranger into a nature magic hunter kind of thing, rather than somebody connected to the land. It doesn't seem to have that flavour. Okay, so now let's look at the hunter. At 3rd level, you got to choose one of the features from Colossus Slayer, Giant Killer, or Horde Breaker. They've done away with that entirely, and now you just get to add a D8 extra damage if a target is missing any of its hit points. Now, that's pretty big. That's a pretty big increase in damage, especially at 3rd level, and you're doing it on every hit that you're using with attack action. So when you get multi-attack, that's going to apply to all of those. An extra D8 on each of those hits. That's pretty strong, and it's pretty bland. It doesn't have that feel, and it doesn't have that customization. It's just you get to do an extra D8. So it feels a bit boring. Now, at 6th level, you get an extra ability called Hunter's Law. Here you can call on the forces of nature to reveal certain strengths and weaknesses of your prey. When a creature is marked by Hunter's Mark, so that's an interesting proviso, so you have to have Hunter's Mark already cast, so it's already requiring a cast spell. You know whether that creature has any immunities, resistance, and vulnerabilities. If the creature has any, you know what they are. So that's a good ability to have, but the prerequisite, the fact it's at level 6, and the fact that, as I'll show you in a minute, you lose out on defensive tactics, I'm not sure it's a good trade. So this is all good stuff to know, but I don't know whether, if I was given the choice of trading this ability at 6th level or defensive tactics at 7, whether I'd go for this, because the 5th defensive tactics is now gone. So you can't do Escape the Horde, multi-attack defense, or Steel Will. Those just don't exist. So this is effectively the replacement for those. You get the Hunter's Law. I think that's not a great trade. Multi-attack you're now gaining at 10th level. But again, I think this is horrible, actually. So in 5th at 11th level, you would get multi-attack. And that would allow you to either do volley or whirlwind attack. So you could, if you're a ranged character, you could make an attack against a number of different creatures within 10 feet of a point. Whirlwind attack, you could make melee attacks. So it worked for different builds. You don't get that now. You do get the ability one level earlier, so now it's at 10th level. So 10th level, multi-attack. You now always have the Conjure Barrage spell prepared. And it doesn't count against the number of spells you can prepare. It's like, oh, but you can also cast it at lower levels with 1st and 2nd level spell slots as well as 3rd, but the spell's damage is reduced by 1d8 for each slot below 3rd. That is, for me, a very, very poor trade from the prior multi-attack. So, for me, it doesn't work. I mean, that's pushed really into a range build more, and yeah, not a fan. Then at 15th level, you had Superior Hunter's Defense, which basically gave you a choice, again, evasion, stand against the tide, or uncanny dodge. Now it happens at 14th level, so it happens a level earlier, but basically you get evasion. It's an improved evasion because you use your reaction to halve the attack's damage and redirect the other half of the damage to one creature other than the attacker that's within 5 feet of you. So if you're fighting a single target, you just get evasion, or if that target is, more than 5 feet away from you. So it's a bit circumstantial. At 14th level, you don't get the choice. So previously, 5th edition, you would have had 3 Hunter's Prey options with 3 defensive tactics options, with 2 multi-attack options, and 3 Superior Hunter's Defense options. 11 options. I ran out of fingers. 11 options. Here, there is 1. That, to me, is the wrong direction. Everywhere else, the spells and everything, it's like, oh, you can choose whatever you like. Here, this is what you get. So it's a reflavouring of the Ranger. It, for me, doesn't feel like a Ranger anymore. It feels very much just like a Hunter. And that connection with different lands and stuff, which could have been done better for sure, because it mechanically wasn't very good and, often didn't come up in play. So there's a lot of homebrew stuff. I don't want to get into all of that, but instead they've just ditched all of that. Rather than trying to fix those, they've ditched all of that and just focused on these very simple mechanical fixes, which, okay, they produce a Ranger of sorts, but very monopurposed, very singular, and for me, a little flavourless. The Ranger, I commend that they've approached it fresh, but I don't really like most of what they've done. I think the spellcasting at level 1 is a good idea. Having cantrips is a good idea, but all of the rest of this, expertise as well, I think is a good idea. The rest of it, I think, really needs to be re-looked at.
That's all for this instalment of Man's Model Moments. Please like, subscribe and share this video if you enjoyed it. It's the best way of helping me to grow the channel and produce more content like it. With that, I hope you have plenty of modelling moments of your own, and I look forward to welcoming you on the next video.